Okay, B.F.D followers. We're on our home stretch now. We're almost there. The frame is done, the basic frame. Geometry and everything's all set, and we've welded up the frame to our desired geometries, right? And now we only have to do a couple of things, and this is where you can kind of make it really unique, and that is how you do your brazons, your cable guides, where you have your cable pass-throughs in through the tubes if you want internal routing, how you do your disc brake mounts if that's what you're going to do. I'm assuming that's what everyone does now, since rim brakes are kind of the thing of the past. But if you want to do retro, you got to figure all that out too. How you want to place them, where you're going to, what type of brake you're going to use, things like that. What type of bracing you want to put onto your tubes for additional support. Like the frame back here is kind of a 160 travel frame, so it's kind of designed to take a little bit more abuse. So I want to, on this frame, put a gusset in underneath the chin on the head tube, and I'll probably put one underneath the top tube to help prevent some stretching, pulling when you take some big hits underneath. This would be a common area for a tube to break right through here, and then also down through here, depending on how hard of a rider you are. And just to cover a couple things, when you're riding hard and you have long travel suspension and things like that, the geometry will change. As the fork shortens, the head tube becomes steeper. That's even more important to take in consideration on hardtail, because it doesn't change in the back. It stays rigid. So if you're up here, it's going to drop way down here, and your back's going to stay jacked up. So you got to take all that consideration. And that was what you had to do early on in your geometry configuration design phase. But anyway, so down tube is going to be in tension. Top tube is going to be in compression for the most part. Now, depending on how you do your bracing and everything, you can influence that. But in general, that's it. And even if you want to break it down a little bit more, the top tube can be in compression on the top and be put under tension on the bottom. Kind of the same thing on the bottom tube. You can put the down tube, and you can put this lower surface in tension, and then the top part in compression, sort of. Okay, so that's why a lot of times you'll see breaks in frames that are generated underneath the side, because that's where they're going to tear. You'll start seeing bubbling in paint and things like that on the top surfaces because they're put in compression. So anyway, depending on what type of riding you're going to do, you might want to take a moment and figure out what type of bracing you want to do for your frame. Okay, so let's talk about what we want to do. So because this frame is going to be done with internal routing for the brake and for the derailleur housing. So both of those cables start on the right hand side. You got your shifter and your back brake on the right. So what I'm going to do is have the cable housing enter onto the left side, because the cable will wrap around and come in from the back side, rather than having it tuck underneath and come in onto the right side. And then ideally keep it nice and flow. I'll have it come around onto the left side and enter in on basically this part of the frame on the left side. It will route down, and I'm going to have it exit underneath. So I'm just going to make a little note about where I want it to exit right there. And that will allow me to route cable out here and out onto the left-hand seat stay. And then for the cable entrance into the top tube, I'm going to have it come around and enter in about right here. So I'll just make a note right there. And just another side note, you can see where the weld is, right here, the joint, but you can also kind of see the heat affected zone. These are areas that you kind of want to stay out of, really, because this is where the tubing is actually, the strength has been affected. It's been heat treated, basically. And so what I'm doing is I'm moving outside the heat affected zone. And the hole will probably be, I'll probably make it like yay big. Just big enough to get the cabling in. And then I'm going to put a doubler over that, and that will strengthen that up. Basically, it's going to double the thickness of the wall there, and I'm going to try to keep it teardrop shape in order to facilitate loads and stiffening of the tube, and aesthetics, of course. I don't want a big square patch that you can look at and see it. I want it to kind of blend in with the frame. I've done the same thing and done it on the lower tube, down tube, but then I have to break it out differently down at the bottom, and I thought I'd try it at the top here. I've done this on road bikes. I don't know how this is going to turn out on the top tube, but we'll see. And then, of course, it's going to come out underneath. So now you also have to think about how you want to route your cables where they're external to the bike. If they had routed out and come out down the bottom, I'd have to route the cables up and along the stays. So I'd have to put cable guides somewhere along here. I'm going to do it on the seat stays. So if the cables come out here, I'm going to have one right here. So I'll just make a note right there in that area. It will be underneath. And then since this is for the derailleur, I need another one. So I'll do one more right here, approximately in this general area. Now I'm just laying this out, getting an idea of where I want to position it. All right, because here I'm going to have my derailleur, right? It's going to hang down here, and the cable is going to have to come down and wrap around, and depending on if it's a Shimano or a SRAM, they have different types of pull mechanisms. So I'll probably put another cable guide somewhere right in here. Matter of fact, I think I might move. I'll just make a note and say here to here. Somewhere in that area. That range. I don't know, depending on how everything looks. Okay, so that gets me the drive side. Now let's take a look at the disc side. And now my brace is going to be somewhere in here, probably here to here, right? So my guide is going to probably be one here and up here. Probably keep it kind of symmetric, so somewhere right in here, right? So yeah, let's move that up. Keep it symmetric. And then I have to put also a slot for clamping the seat tube, dropper post in this case. So I need to make a note that I need to put a slot here, right? And I think rather than having a removable collar, I'm going to raise on a clasp of some sort right here to clamp it so I don't have to have a collar. Now you can do anything you want here. And to give you an example, here's one that I designed, of course, and it used an external collar. Here's one where I brazed on the clamps themselves. So it's a little bit more work, but you don't have to buy a collar or anything like that. So your choice again. And then you have to think about how you want to route your dropper if you're going to have a dropper. In my case, I do. And so I've had it where the dropper cable routed underneath and came up and went in here. But I think I'm going to do external. And that means I'm going to have, it's going to wrap around. I'm going to have a guide here. Let's get a new pen. That one's dead, more or less. I'm going to have a guide here. Down here. Somewhere in here. Let's say here. And then down here. Because the cable is going to come down and arc. So I want to direct it down. I think I'm going to put it more lower in here. And then it's going to come up and enter in somewhere in here. Now I have that centered. I'll probably pull it off to the side a little bit because the cable is going to come down on the, I'm going to call it the upper third. So not exactly on the side, but kind of up along the diagonal here. Because again, you have to think about the whole design. The lettering on this is going to be right on the down tube. It's going to be probably B.F.D, and that's bike frame designs, right? AKA barrel frame designs. And I might actually do it on the top tube too, maybe directly down on top. I don't know, we'll see. And so you got to think about that, because if you have your cable housing going right across your lettering, it may not be what you want, right? So think about it. And then I'm going to have B.F.D down in the seat tube area. All right, so that is pretty much the routing. Now I'm also going to have a brace right in here and a brace right up here. And then for the brake side, disc brake side, because when you brake hard, squeeze, you got the rotational stresses here, rotational moment going around, and your brake mounts here, and it's going to be tugging on your it will be tugging on your seat stay, and it'll be working this area. So I've actually had one break due to fatigue. It was a lightweight frame, it was a racing frame, so it is what it is. So I'm going to put a brace right here. And I might even put one over here just for kind of a symmetric look, but also for additional stiffness in this area. It is going to be kind of a hardtail enduro bike, so I don't want it to break, right? Now that's it pretty much, and you can add other things. You can add a gusset in here if you want. You can add a gusset up here in this area, a bridge that runs between the two. You can do a lot of things, but I think all I'm going to do is put a chin brace under here and a doubler up here and keep it simple. Oh, wait, I forgot one. I am putting a bridge on the seat mast. I'm going to do an arcing bridge here to here. For structural, it's more of an aesthetic thing. Think about it, lay it out, plan it, then attack it, right? Play with it. This is where you can customize. Like I said, I do a custom bridge on all my bikes, and so that is the one thing that's always unique. It's either the bridge here or the brace on the disc side, and I make those unique. Cool. All right. I'll start working on mine, and I'll show you all the hard pieces when I'm done. I'm actually going to make my own cable guides, and I'll show you that as I go about doing it. So before I show you how I made my cable guides, I just want to show you all the small parts that I ended up making to braze onto the frame. Now remember, there are no rules as to what you have to put onto your frame. It's whatever you want. Okay? Now we're going to transition over to how I went about making my own cable guides. First, I just chopped up some material, cut it to length with my saw, and kind of guessed at how tall I wanted them to be, the distance away from the frame, and I doubled it. Okay, and so what I'm doing is I'm going to be cutting two cable guides at the same time, essentially. So I cut the material, then I'm going to transfer it over to my mill and just drill a hole down through the middle that's about the same size of the cable. Now you can do this on a regular press if you wanted, and all I've done now is once the hole is cut, I'm splitting it, and when I'm done splitting it with a grinder, you basically have two cable guides, and in this case it's actually four cable guides because they're double the length, and I'll just cut them in half, and then you have your final product. There you go. Now we have all of our hard parts created, and now we need to braze them on. And so when you do that, you need to add your flux to the frame. As another welding aid, I use just regular little clamps to hold the cable guides onto the frame. Now, if you're not going to use a seat tube clamp, you need to fabricate something to do the same thing. In this case, I created my own little clamps that I will braze onto the frame. And it's just two pieces with a bolt that runs through it, and I'll show you kind of steps. I just took raw material again and used a hole saw to drill through to create the halves that will mate up to the seat tube itself. Then it was pretty straightforward. I just drilled a hole through both of them, one undersized and one oversized, and then tapped it. And then I just form cut it to the shape that I wanted it to look like, and that's pretty much it. You do whatever you want, but the more surface area you have on it, the better the welding will be. And you can see there's my fit up of both pieces, and then final product there is just welded on. Now I still need to do the cleanup, sanding those down so that everything looks smooth and nice. But I don't want to bore you with that part. It's easy. It just takes a little more time, and it's time consuming. So I'm not going to show that. Now the following pics are going to be of the balance of the parts being brazed on, and they're just rough brazed. They're not finished. So I'll do that later on, but that's pretty much it. Now enjoy the pics, and I'll see you at the end. And finally, it's the disc brake mount tab that needs to be installed. And this has a couple unique ways of doing it, and I will cover. All right, hang tight. Okay, now in the background here, you can see my frame, and I put the back wheel back on because I need the disc present. And if you go online or do your own calculations, you can develop your own tool, handheld tool that mounts onto your frame that simulates the disc location based off the hub and all that kind of stuff. I did that, and I actually, I wonder if I still have it. Here's part of it. I should have looked for it before, but made it out of aluminum, and it kind of worked. I didn't instill a lot of trust in it, so I don't use it right now, and I haven't used it for years now. I just go ahead and throw on a back wheel and do all my markups. And so if you're like me and you just can't afford to have all the nice tools and indexing tools and things like that, you can do what I have going right here. And so what I've done is I've mounted up an old caliper, and I have the hardware mounted on it. And so what I can do now is go and place the caliper on the rotor and locate it on the frame like this, right? And so you can spin it, and you can move it to the point where it actually starts to hit, you know, where you'd have to start putting spacers underneath there to raise it up, tilt it, and do whatever you need. I'm going to use a slider style for this bike. Kind of an idea someone might want to make a single speed on this, or just wants the variability. Excuse me, I just had lunch. Anyway, I've done this before on another build, and he used it as a single speed, but then he'd go and convert it over to geared bike, and it was just convenient that way. So anyway, what you can do is you can move this around and or loosen this up and slide the caliper on the mount to see what best fits for the rotation of the disc. And I'm using a 180, and what I'll do is when I do sell this frame or get rid of it, I'll let them know what size of ISO, International Standard. I forget what I forget the acronym, but anyway, the standard brace or offset that you can buy, and that way they can get the correct one that is set for this size of a rotor with this mount, and just for convenience, of course. You don't want to have them going around searching for a particular size. I might even include this on the frame itself so that they don't have to go and find one. That said, I need to do some grinding after I locate it. So I've marked how I want the profile to kind of look. I'll put a flat spot in here so it sits down flatter and get more weld surface area. And that's basically it. And once I have this one done, I have all the other small parts, braze-ons all completed, and I'll go about just either welding them or doing the brazing. And I'll do some snapshots of that as I go about. And I'll give you some snapshots of this as I finish grinding it and getting it fitted. So basic steps is I'm just marking where the tab will be on the frame and looking to see how I want to modify it. And I mark up the part with just a pen, and then as you can see, I want to do a flat spot on the bottom side and round it off a bit. And then I just simply take it to my bench grinder and work it down to the desired configuration. And then I do another fit check back up onto the frame. And then once that's done, I just go about tack welding it in place. And then you'll see the final product, and it's all done perfectly aligned with the disc brake mount brace in place too. And that is the end of my build. And I hope this helps you all. And I really do hope that you got something out of this. Like I said, this is something that I've always wanted to be able to do. And I just slowly went out and took the necessary classes and everything to get to where I am. And I've built about 55 frames now. So what I hope you got from all this is that you don't need to be a super talented person, have all the right tools and everything. You can do this on a budget and slowly accumulate the tools that you need. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop me a message on the video and I'll try to get back to you. Good luck out there, and if you're interested in any of the videos, let me know what type you'd like. I do a lot of fabrication for parts and repairs from damaged frames if they're steel. I try to stay away from aluminum just because I don't want to have to deal with heat treating and all that kind of stuff, unless it's like a small braze on, things like that. But anyway, get out there, give it a try. If you have any problems, give me a ring. Alright, take care all and stay tuned. If you want to see other videos, again, I do plan on doing some more. I'll probably do some powder coating and other types of bike related videos. Alright, peace.